Hey everybody, my name is Paul Kwon. I am a concept artist and character designer in the game industry. This is a demo that I did, a tribute art of Asuka from Evangelion. She's one of my favorite characters, so I was asked to draw her, do an art of her in my own style. So I will be commentating from time to time, not the whole video, but when there's any important aspects that come up, I will try to explain it. So this piece was done entirely on Procreate app, which is only available on iPad Pro. There's also a Procreate Pocket for the mobile device, the phone device, which you have to use your finger. It's pretty challenging, but it's also delightful to use. And the fact that you can use it on the fly anywhere, as long as you have the phone with you, it's really awesome. So yeah, for this piece, I kind of tackled in a way, it's, rough drawing, line art. Try to establish as much of the backbone and foundation as much as possible. Of course, I think it always changes throughout the process because you see how it develops and how it changes, the perspective changes. So it's a little bit harder with Procreate since they at the time didn't have tools like Warp Tool, which will let you push and pull the shapes any way you want. So it makes you think more traditionally and try to be extra careful. So just tightening the line drawing. I'm adding more thickness to thickness and contrast in like an ambient occlusion area where lights, it's harder for lights to get in and affect the value. So yeah, starting to mask, and I always mask with very contrasty color, so it's more accurate, more precise, and I'm able to make things pop and separate the pieces. And yeah, quickly I did like a brush, like a soft brush, like an airbrush around areas like the skin tones, adding skin tones and blush and simple makeup. And you want to be very, careful with it. You want to be very subtle and not too bold with it, because I think something appealing, trying to make an appealing character, especially female characters, you have to make sure it's subtle and not too harsh, too sharp. Like it's all about softness, subtlety, and it's like that small differences that adds up, and subconsciously people will find them more attractive versus characters that are a little bit more defined and has more crease around their facial features. So yeah, I'm also working on the Evangelion that she pilots. I try to make it very accurate to the latest design, but I also added some subtle details, tertiary details, to make it more realistic, more functional, and believable. So now what I did was I put a layer on top of everything, over her at least, and turn it to white, and I kind of clip mask locked it, and turn the layer into multiply. And this allows you to just paint in just the shadows. And the shadow I'm using, it's just one tone for now. It's like a mid-gray, like 30% cool gray, which actually works pretty well throughout any color and any color and value. So that's what I use universally. And later on, when I did post-processing, I changed some of the colors. Maybe I can make it lighter, or blend in with the skin tone, or depending on the material, I can try to make it more sense. And I'm also adding some rim light, and I want to focus on just the primary lighting, which is shining like directly towards her, in front of her, and rim light is helpful for adding some volumetric. So usually, something with this type of harsh lighting, or strong primary lighting, I want to keep the rim lighting like a secondary lighting element. And what I'm doing now is I'm painting on top of all the layers for her. I'm adding some like an orange type of subsurface scattering kind of effect, but I'm not using a special layer type. I was just painting over the lines, and kind of between line and the negative space that was apparent in just the line drawing, to help it blend a little bit better. What I'm doing here is I'm using an airbrush, and what I do is I just put it down on top of the area I want to add more shadow, form shadow to, or some kind of gradient. It gets on everywhere, right? So what I do for Procreate is I cut it out after I apply the really soft airbrush. I turn down the size of the airbrush and just manually cut it out. So it's very sharp, but on the edges of the shape where I want to add the gradient or form shadow, and I let it, it's about the contrast. It's the sharpness and the transition into softness. So yeah, I just applied a lot of the soft, airbrush to add more forms around her. Now I'm working on the background, the mech, the Evangelion. I'm adding like a very subtle, like top-down lighting. I want to keep him very graphical, and really, still show off the clean line drawing. I'm working on I guess those are explosions. That's what I remember watching the old anime. It's kind of those shapes, those iconic shape explosions that are kind of iridescent, and I thought that it would be fascinating rather than keeping them just red. It's pretty simple kind of design language I'm trying out here. I'm just repeating the shapes, adding a little bit of the vibrancy and noise pattern in the center of these shapes, and that adds a nice variations of the shapes, and I think art principle, like even with anything, sound or music, whatever, VFX, animation, anything like that, that they all require some sort of level of contrast. And for art, I use the principle of 1, 2, 3. Small, medium, and big, or big, medium, small. That could be applied everywhere. Shape, size, proportions of a character, the contrast of value, even color, the intensity of the color. I think those, as long as you have that principle in mind, it doesn't have to be exactly 1, 2, 3, but have that contrast, your piece will stand out, has longevity, and it will just feel more natural and pleasing to look at. So I'm adding, popping things out, like I'm adding some of the smoke or cloud, like red cloud effects behind the mech to help them kind of pop out. I'm also adding gradients around, like vignette, around the whole piece to, bring the focus towards her. Adding vignette on the mech itself. Doing some more post-processing. That I think that's the most fun part. You're towards the end. You're pretty confident with the piece, and this is where you, try to do everything you can, but not overdoing it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I might add more post-processing effects in the Photoshop, but this is the demo done in Procreate, purely in Procreate for iPad Pro, and it's a wonderful app. It's very powerful. I actually prefer using this over Photoshop, and this is a program that's ever changing. I think they now have a warp tool and liquify tool, and it's even more powerful than Photoshop. And I can't wait to see where this goes. This has changed my artistic experience and my life as an artist. And hope you guys enjoyed it. Try it out, and maybe I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.